Okay, hey seventh grade. So those of you in class, this was not your bell ringer yesterday, but I do want to go over it for those that are watching this video online. So which of the following statements accurately denotes the frequency of expression of dominant and recessive traits? So I talked about dominant and recessive traits on Friday. Remember that dominant traits is the capital letter and recessive traits are the lowercase letter. Those of you in class, see if you can get this right before I give you the answer. Miss, you can pause it here and see what their answers are and see if they got it right. Okay, so dominant traits are the capital letter and recessive traits are the lowercase letter, meaning that dominant traits are always going to be expressed and recessive traits are sometimes going to be expressed, because the only time the recessive trait is going to show up is if there's two lowercase letters. Dominant traits are always going to show up if it's there. So remember, there's the dominant trait, which is capital letter, and lowercase letter. Dominant trait is going to cover up the lowercase. So the only way you're going to get this lowercase trait is if you have two of them. Okay, you have this, you have dominant trait. If you have this, you have the dominant trait. If you have this, you have the recessive trait. So dominant traits is always, and recessive traits is sometimes. So the answer here would have been C. Okay, so now yesterday we went over asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction is making offspring with only one parent, and this is usually by bacteria, some plants, protists, those type of things reproduce asexually, and they only need one parent, but the offspring looks exactly like that parent because there's no genetic variation. It just literally makes a copy of its own DNA and then puts it into its offspring, and so it's an exact copy. Okay, so we're going to talk about sexual reproduction today, which is going to be the other mode of reproduction that most animals do. And we're going to compare and contrast the asexual and sexual reproduction. So that's our objective today. Students will complete a Venn diagram in their notebooks on sexual and asexual reproduction. So that's my exit ticket for my ND students. I believe it's in your digital notebooks as a compare and contrast. And then those at school, you guys will have a compare and contrast exit ticket. So those of you at home, you guys are writing notes. You're going to write everything that is in red on these next slides. Those of you in class, you're going to fill in the blanks on your notes on what I'm going over. Okay, so let's go to that. All right, so this is in red. So those of you at home, you guys are writing this, and it's just the definition of sexual reproduction. Those of you at school, you guys have this in your, just fill in the blanks on your notes. Okay, so sexual reproduction is a type of reproduction in which two parent cells, male and female reproductive cells, combine to form offspring with genetic material from both cells. So that means you have half that DNA from your mom, half the DNA from the dad, and they combine to make a full DNA, or the full amount of chromosomes that you need. Okay, so again, you need both parents, and their reproductive parent cells need to come together to make one organism. Okay, so that means you have genetic variation because you get half that DNA from your mom, half the DNA from your dad, and the DNA in your egg or sperm cell is not always the same. So that's why you guys don't look like your siblings, or not exactly like your siblings unless you're twins, because the DNA that you got from your dad, and the DNA that your sister got from your dad may not be the same DNA. Okay, so they kind of mix it up a little bit. Okay, I'll remember writing what's in red. Sexual reproduction requires two parents, whereas asexual requires one. Requires two parents, and each share half the genetic information from mom and half the genetic information from dad. So we talked about this when we went over alleles. Remember, you always get one half that gene from your mom and one half that gene from your dad. And so that's part of the sexual reproduction. You get half and half, one from each parent, because you have to have two parents for sexual reproduction. I'll make this bigger for y'all. Okay, so sexual reproduction results in differences in offspring. The offspring are different from their parents and their siblings. So since you have two parents, that's two sets of DNA, two half DNAs that you're getting from each, and it's a mix-up on what genes you're getting from your parents. So um, that results in differences and variation of your genes from your parents. You're not going to look exactly like your parents. You may look similar, but you don't look exactly. And then you also look different from your siblings because they got different DNA from your mom and different DNA from your dad, even if you guys had the same parents. And of course, if you have different parents, then you're definitely going to look different. So some advantages and disadvantages of sexual reproduction. So this is in red. So those of you at home, you're writing. Those of you in class, you should be filling in these blanks. So advantages of sexual reproduction is variation. So it's a good thing to be different because you want to be able to adapt to that environment. And in order for evolution and adaptations to work, you need variations in the species. Organism is more protected from the environment because of genetic variation. So if there's some change in the environment, maybe it got warmer and instead of being white in the snow, then you're brown. It doesn't work if you're in the snow, but if the snow melts, then if you're brown in the grass, then you're more likely to survive. So if you survive, you pass on that genetic information. So some good things. Okay, those are that the variation is a good thing. Okay, it helps with survival. Some disadvantages, it does require two organisms so organisms have to find a mate, which takes a lot of energy and takes some time, requires more energy. It does take more energy to grow um, a new organism, and it takes more time required for offspring development. Again, it takes time and it takes energy for sexual reproduction. One, because you have to have two parents, and two, because making of that organism and developing that organism is going to take more time and more energy. So flowers can go kind of, it depends on what kind of plant you have, but plants can go either way. They can do sexual reproduction or asexual reproduction, depending on the plant. Some plants can just send out those plantlets like the amoeba sisters had and make its own, which again, it would have one parent, so it'd be identical to the parent. But then you also have plants that can do sexual reproduction, and that is with their flowers and pollen. So the flowers are reproductive organs of plants, um, and the flowers contain the egg of the plant, and then the pollen is the sperm of the plant. So once the pollen gets in those flowers, it produces a new organism. Okay, so we're gonna watch the rest of the Amoeba Sisters video. I stopped it yesterday at asexual. We are gonna continue and look at the sexual reproduction part of it. And then we'll go off into our groups. Those of you at home, and those of you in the other classroom, your assignment for today is to watch this video, okay? Take notes from the video. So if you want to watch this video and take notes in red, you can, but the notes are also in a digital notebook for you guys to write down in your paper notebook at home. Writing helps you remember, and it's there for you whenever you need to study for your test. Take a picture of your notes and attach them. Then what you're going to do is watch the whole Amoeba Sisters video and then complete the Amoeba Sisters video worksheet below. You'll have to use Kami and download the assignment to attach it to your work. So I'm going to kind of show you how to do that real quick. Okay, so this is your worksheet. You got to open it in Kami. So usually you guys have an open with here. Mine has this right here. So I'm going to open it with Kami. It'll bring up the worksheet. So you're going to put your answers here with the text box. And it says put a check mark, but you can just put an X is fine for those that are true about this picture. And then you are going to, so for this part, you are going to be looking at the picture and reading these descriptions. The ones that are correct for this picture, you're going to put an X next to. This one, you're going to write some advantages and disadvantages of asexual and sexual reproduction, also using the text box. This one, you are going to create a speech bubble for this guy and this guy, these guys, so that I kind of get an understanding if you know what this is. And the last two things, just read the questions and answer them to the best of your ability, all of which you're going to use the text box here. Once you are done, you're going to press this save button. You're going to upload or download onto your computer. Once you've downloaded that, you can find it and attach it to your assignment by clicking the add or create, press the file button, go to upload, and you should see it there. And it should be named Cami Export, and then it should be named Amoeba Sisters Sexual and Asexual Handout. Okay, so if you have any questions, please let me know. I am grading these, so make sure you get it done, and have a great day.